Welcome to the Elevate Media Podcast with your host, Chris Anderson. In this show, Chris and his guests will share their knowledge and experience on how to go from zero to successful entrepreneur. They have built their businesses from scratch and are now ready to give back to those who are just starting. Let's get ready to learn, grow, and elevate our businesses. And now, your host, Chris Anderson.
Welcome back to the Elevate Media Podcast. I'm Chris Anderson, your host. Today, I want to dive into three things that a lot of people will overlook when they're creating video content. These are all things that are easily glossed over, forgotten about, especially if you're trying to create a bunch of content and you're doing it quickly, maybe. You can definitely overlook these. So let's hop right into it. So the first thing a lot of people overlook, don't think about, or forget about when they're recording video is depth of field. So depth of field is just how far away you are from the background, more or less, keeping it simple. So as you see me on camera here, I'm not right up against the wall behind me. There's probably 5 feet behind me to the wall. So you want to create some space between you and whatever it is behind you. We've all seen it, the people on Zoom who are right up against the wall and it's just straight behind them. Doesn't give any depth, doesn't give any kind of professional feel to it. So if you're on Zoom and you're just doing Zoom meetings and you want to improve how it looks, scoot away from the wall a little bit more. Give that depth so you can see behind me, like you'll see the decor and things like that are a little bit out of focus. And it gives just that hint of being farther away, and depth of field is something that a lot of people don't think about when they're recording video. Now, you might not have a lot of space in the room you are recording in to move from the wall very far. So if that's the case, one way you can go about this to still get depth in your shot and not be right up against the wall is actually go at an angle. So set up your camera or your laptop, your webcam, whatever it is, angle towards the corner of the room. Be seated in the corner a few feet away from the corner itself. So that wall coming in to the corner and you being in front of it a little bit, even if it's only a foot or two, will give you more depth because of how the lines and everything is directing towards the corner of the room. It'll look like you have more depth than you really do. So if you're short on space, that's one way you can utilize less space but still get some depth, is shooting into the corner. That gives you depth with the walls leading into that point there. The second thing is framing. So framing is just what's in the shot, how is it located in the shot, the positioning of things and people in the shot. This part is often overlooked as well. We've all seen the Zoom videos where the person is super, super close on frame and actually cuts off part of their head, and it's just their whole face basically in the shot. That'd be poor framing. You want to have a little bit of headspace, a little gap between the top of your head and the top of the frame or where the video stops being seen. You want to have that little gap there. Now, talking heads, obviously a little bit different because I'm straight on camera. Now, if you're looking for more like of a cinematic shot or something to attract more attention to the shot itself, you want to follow the rule of thirds. So when you're looking at the screen and you take the center and then you go halfway between the center line and the edge of the screen, and you put a line there. So center, edge of the screen, halfway there. And then you do the same top and bottom. You'll have like a grid. So where the vertical and the horizontal lines meet, that's the rule of thirds. Those are locations that the eyes are drawn to. So that's where you want to put things in shot that you want to be focused on. So if a cinematic shot for an interview, for example, you'd have the person just a little off center. So the eyes are right over one of the grids, the cross sections there. And you still want to have that headspace. So that's one thing you can really think about. Yeah, and especially that's the big thing on talking heads is that headspace. So leave a gap above your head on video so it's not cutting off your head, so you're not filling up the screen. That also gives you the ability to zoom in a little bit so you can change up the zoom level as you're creating clips to keep the mind engaged. It'll jump cut to a closer shot of you. And if you have the headspace, you have the ability to do that a little bit. That's the second thing, is framing. And then the third thing is lighting. Lighting is actually more important than the camera you have. You could have a great camera and have terrible lighting, and your video is going to look terrible. So lighting is something people don't think about. They're on camera and they have this big bright window behind them or light behind them that's just overexposing the background and just washing everything out. And it's just this big glare, which then puts more shadow on the face of the individual because it's taking up all the light behind them. So that's one big thing you got to think about. So if you have a big window behind you, you might want to just cover it up, get some curtains, some blackening curtains, so you don't have all that light shining in behind you and overexposing the background. And then you also want to worry about the lighting in the front of you. So maybe you shift so the window's actually illuminating your face, but you have to worry about that's casting on you. You want enough so that you don't have a bunch of heavy shadows all over your face. You want it to be illuminated and stand out, but you don't want to be overexposed and have too much where it just washes you out, all that hard light. So you got to think about the intensity of the light as well. So you want to watch the shadows, again, with light. Make sure you don't have a lot of hard shadows, really dark face, unless you're going for that really cinematic look. Depending on what your situation is, majority of people listening, they're not going for that really dramatic cinematic look where they have just a little bit of light on the face here and it's mostly dark on the other side. For the majority of people listening, you're going to want to have a fairly well illuminated face with not really heavy to many shadows, and you don't want your background to be overexposed. And with that being said, if you have some to invest and you can get a light behind you like you see on my view or on my screen, on my video, that light there against the wall just, again, separates myself from the background a little bit more. And then I have the practical light of the lamp behind me as well, so you can see it shining on my arm and shoulder here and up the back of my head. That hair light, rim light, whatever you want to call it, again, just separates the person on camera from the background even more. So those are all some really practical, easy lighting things to think about, look at when you're recording video content. And those little tweaks, those little improvements can really change your video and what it looks like as a final product. So I hope you got something from these 3 tips. Share this with someone who's working on video content, who's trying to build a studio, who's trying to improve what they're doing on camera and make a difference. Help them out by sharing this so they can learn and they can improve. We can help so many more people together by doing that. And I appreciate it. So until next time, go out there, continue to elevate your life, elevate your brand, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you for listening to the Elevate Media Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. See you in the next episode.